Hey, what's up, everyone? It's your girl IkwerreGirl Acheru, all the way from Talk to Dot. How's everyone doing? How's the lockdown? How's the lockdown treating you? What is domestic abuse? Domestic abuse is anyone using any sort of force or any tactics of control to overpower you, to subdue you, to manipulate you into doing things that normally you wouldn't want to do. So the idea of abuse or of an abusive person is to control you, to maintain power and control over you. A lot of times this can be done by psychologically manipulating you, by emotionally manipulating you, by financially manipulating you, by sexually manipulating you. A lot of these things can happen even without the physical bit of it. So in a nutshell, that is domestic abuse. What it is, you don't have to get hit to be abused. You could be abused several times over without being touched once. And trust me, by the time that the abuser actually hits you, it might not mean so much to you because psychologically you've been damaged. So if you're in an abusive situation or abusive relationship, know that you're not alone. You need to talk to someone. There's lots of people you can talk to online. There's lots of chats and everything. There's domestic violence helpline that you could ring. There's 111 you can ring to make inquiries. There's shelters. There's a whole lot of people. And if you don't have access to any of these ones, hey, you can talk to Dot. I'm right here. So and my website is www.talktodot.com. And you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and the rest of them. We've got a massive community online trying to raise and create awareness because I've seen how damaging this can be, not just to the person that's being abused, but also to the children, because children are the silent victims of abuse. They sit in an abusive relationship. They didn't ask to be born in that family. They didn't ask to be there. And as children, it's our duties as adults to protect them from whatever it might be that they're going through. So when we stay in an abusive situation because we want to stay married, because we want to check 10 years, we want to check 25 years, we want to check 50 years, oh, hallelujah, we're married and we're happy, you're damaging the children and then the next generation. So at the end of the day, the cycle doesn't end. It's an endless cycle of abusive people. There's lots of stats. I have a video that goes on about stats of, children that are raised in abusive relationships and how they turn out. So trust me, it's not a place to keep children. It's like, it's a war zone, literally. Just imagine being in the Middle East, or one of those places where there's a war. Would you want your children to be there? Of course, the answer is no. But then if you stay in an abusive relationship, trust me, that's exactly where you're leaving your children. You're leaving them in war. One of the things I also do is, as much as I try to educate people about what domestic abuse is, I also try to educate the people around them. So you might not actually be in an abusive relationship, but there's loads of people around you that are being abused. And a lot of times, the longer a person stays in an abusive relationship, the more difficult it is for them to come out because they're psychologically damaged. They're going through so much trauma. They've got complex PTSD, and it's so difficult for them to make that choice. They've been broken so much that they can't go anywhere. So, but the people around them can recognize the signs, and because they've recognized it, it's your job by law here in the UK and in the Western world. You have the right to make that phone call to say, well, I think that this is going on. Just like you hear someone screaming fire, fire, or you hear someone say help, help. You can help them. So a lot of people in abusive situations are screaming, help me, help me, help me, but we just don't understand it. So what I try to do is to educate people about what domestic abuse looks like and the signs you look out for, because it could be quite subtle that you might not know or you might not see it. But then if you know what the signs are, you could potentially save your neighbor, your sister, your brother, your uncle, your colleague, people around you, because this thing, like I tell you, like every 9 seconds it's happening. So it's there. It's not as uncommon as you think, and it's happening to the best of the people that you least expect it to happen to. So what are the things that you might look out? It's a topic I talk about all the time because I'm very, very passionate about it. A lot of people don't know what domestic abuse is. When you talk about domestic abuse, the first thing they think about is physical violence. Physical violence makes up a part of it, but that's not all of it. You could be abused and highly traumatized and, without being hit even once. So what is domestic abuse and what are the signs? What are the things to look out for? There's a great number of people that have lived in abusive relationships and not even known that they were being abused. So because they never knew what it was. A lot of people, because they think about the physical part of it, as long as they're not being hit and the person has never hit them, their mind is still programmed to the fact that, okay, well, he hasn't hit me yet, she hasn't hit me yet, so it's probably not abuse, we can work on it. But it's a bit, not a bit, it's a lot more than that. As someone in an abusive relationship and as someone who is observing as well, outside the fact that physically you see the black eyes, the bruises, and you hear the shouting and the yellings, but in some situations you don't hear that. So what are the things you look out for? So for someone in a relationship, yeah, your partner will bully you all the time. They will threaten you. They'll try to control you in every way possible, literally, even up to what you eat, what you drink, who you talk to, when you sleep, when you wake up, what you watch, how you dress. That's how much control they'll have over you. When you pick up your phone, how long you spend on the phone, who you're talking to, that's how much control you're going to be getting. They will accuse you of having an affair. They will justify why they do what they do. They will say, oh, how come you came home 5 minutes later? Who was that person you were talking to? Who's that person that sent you a message? Why did you pick up your phone? You must have been with someone. So someone who does this sort of things, they are an abusive person. This is who they are. So if you're hearing these things in your relationship, don't think it's going to change. It's something that you need to take a step back and think about. Okay, fine. This is what it is. What am I going to do about it? The other things you look out for is someone who is constantly blaming you for everything. Like, I know this one person, right, that failed their that failed their driver's test, right? The theory, they failed it and they blamed their wife. Now, how is it their wife's fault? Oh, it's your fault because you never you never reminded me to read for it. So you see, these people will blame everyone. I know this one person here that their dad died, right? And then they blamed every single person on earth for the death of their father. And like, how is that anybody's fault? Like, the man was old, the man was ill, and the man died. But then this person decided to blame the world, including the ones that were close to them. Or it was your fault, or it was this person's fault. So you understand that they blame people for everything, even when they are at wrong. I know someone who physically assaulted a person, but yet they blamed the person that they assaulted, that it was their fault. You provoked me, and that's why I hit you. So an abusive person will blame people for everything. They will blame the closest to them. They will blame their wives, their spouses, their girlfriends, their husbands, their children. They will blame you for every single thing. And that's how you identify that that's an abusive situation. The other thing is that they will criticize you for everything. So for instance, you cooked a meal. Why is there too much spice in it? Why is it too salty? Why is the meat not tender enough? Why does it smell like this? What's that? Why did it take you so long to cook it? You understand? They will criticize every single thing, And if you ever say stuff like, why are you always criticizing me? They'll be like, oh my goodness, here's the one that we can never tell her what to do. Here's the one that we can never tell him what to do. Oh, you're so damaged, I just told you something and you would accept it. So an abusive person will blame people for everything. They never blame themselves. They always blame everybody else. So I was just trying to give people some sort of ideas of what it is. It's not always physical. The physical one, we can always see it. I mean, by the time you go to the hospital 3 or 4 times, like, how many times are you going to tell them you fell down the stairs or you ran into the door, stuff like that, So people will see it. But when it's not physical, it's more difficult for people to understand. So you're looking out for, potentially it might sound funny. If you've never been through abuse, you might not understand, like, oh my goodness, how is that even possible? But yeah, it does happen. Like, some people will even go as much as controlling what their spouses wear or what their girlfriends or their partners wear. They'll be like, no, I need you to wear this, or they pick out your clothing, they pick out what you eat. I heard a story recently where this lady said the man would choose when she ate, and sometimes he will starve her for so long that she will be shaking in hunger. She lost so much weight, she could have died in her house, but that's how it was. Now, for someone who is looking at it from the external, they'll be like, oh, why didn't she just leave? From the first day a person meets the opposite sex and they fall in love, the abuse doesn't start on that day. Obviously, any normal human being that meets a person and they hit you on the first day, or they start shouting at you on the first day, because you're going to run away from them. So it takes a period of time where this thing begins to build out. A lot of times we hear the end of the story, which is when it's got to the peak of the abuse, where, oh, I was not allowed to leave the house, or, oh, he used to starve me, or, that's the end bit of it. When they met, that wasn't happening. So it took time to get to that stage. Now, by the time a person has stayed in a situation for years and years, and it gets to the stage where literally they're now treated like a prisoner in real life, by that stage, they're highly traumatized. They're like, I use this example all the time. Like, they're like victims of war, prisoners of war. Hollywood, when they finally find this American soldier that has been underground, buried for years and years, and they rescue him, he's just like a vegetable. Like, he can't talk, he can't communicate, he can't function. It's almost like he doesn't even want to leave. That's exactly the same situation with someone who lives in an abusive situation. Lots of times, yes, people think that it's love, and that's the trick of abusive people. It starts by love. It's called love bombing. They got so many terms for it. They do quite a lot of things. I give a good example where that's why people need to understand what the red flags are. If you know what it is, then you know it's not love. So you have people where they're like, oh, I'm just concerned. That's why I call you all the time. And I just think, this dress looks better. If you just dress like this is better. Or why don't I just check up on you all the time? I'm so concerned about you. I don't like your friends. They don't like you. So maybe you don't need to be hanging out with them. Besides, why do you need friends when you have me? So all those things sound like love. Until the day you get tired of it and you're thinking, okay, hang on, I really want to go out and see my family. I want to go and see the outside world. Then you see the other side of the person, because for the first time, you're putting your foot down. So people think it's love, and they do it until the point where they're thinking, okay, hang on, this is a bit, it's a bit too much. And then they try to put their foot down, and then it goes pear-shaped. I know someone who, when she met this guy, like outside the fact that he spoke to her all the time, like, wake up in the morning, he'll be the one to ring her in the morning to wake her up. On the way to work, he'll be on the phone with her. Lunchtime at work, he'll be on the phone with her. On the way back from work, he'll be on the phone with her. Get back from work after she's had dinner, he'll be on the phone with her until she falls asleep. In the morning again, he calls her again, and he does this all the time. As long as they're not together, he's on the phone with her. Now that sounded like love, and unfortunately, everybody around her that she told about this situation, like, she felt like it was a bit too much. But then she told people around her, and they said, you are so lucky, men don't care this much. How did you win? That's the gold mine. You understand? So a lot of people around them did not understand, but this was his way of, like, trying to isolate her from the rest of the world. Like, if you spend all of your time talking to just one person, they've isolated you. By the time you get into that relationship where the next step is to look for that one thing where they can hold you down. Either one person gets pregnant, or they get married, or they buy a house together, or they start a business together. Once that happens and you're on lockdown, then it now becomes a situation of, you want to go out. Well, why would you want to go out when you have your family? Like, what's more important than your family? Who's that person you want to see? Oh, you don't love me anymore, and there's all that. It just goes pear-shaped. So these are the tricks that they use, and then people stay for so long, and then before you know it, like, brain damage. In fact, everything is just up in the air, and they can't even. They begin to ask themselves, like, okay, what's going on? Am I sure I'm doing the right thing? They become confused. The victims become confused. They become uncertain about their choices and the decisions. When someone has spent so much time making all the choices for you, what you eat, what you wear, what you dress, the one opportunity that you try to make your own decision, the person criticizes you and says, how can you even do something like that? So they become uncertain. They become unsure about themselves, and then that's how it starts. You also have people that will threaten to kill you or kill someone close to you. So for instance, if you said, oh no, I'm gonna go out, I'll kill that person that you're going to see, I'm just gonna go kill them. If you don't stay away from this person, I'm gonna kill them because obviously you love them more than me. Then you also have those ones that will threaten to kill themselves, so they will use that as an emotional blackmail. And you might think, oh my goodness, he's so intense, he'll kill himself because I want to leave, he can't leave without me. No, don't deceive yourself, right? A person who says that they will kill themselves if you leave, they will kill you, literally. They will kill you, literally. So it's not love. It's something else. It's not love. It's madness, in fact. So yeah. So they unleash threats a lot. If they're gonna do these things or not, I don't know. But the point is, if you live with that person or you're in love with that person that is always laying out threats to their families, to their friends, to this person, to the bus driver, to the cab driver, to the doctors, then you should be a bit worried about them. You should be a bit worried about their mental state of mind. People that have no control of their emotions, of their temper. Someone who gets angry and is just like, oh, they throw something on the wall or they smash stuff. Now, they're not hitting you, but if you understand psychology and the way the brain works, if someone can just smash something on the wall or break something, it sends fear to you. So in your head, you're thinking, oh my goodness, he could hit me. He hasn't actually hit you, but the fear of how angry they get is enough to keep you living in fear. So as much as people in abusive relationships that haven't got hit say, oh no, I'm fine, I'm fine, he wouldn't do that to me. In their head, there's that element of fear of they can't predict the person. One day they might just turn around and throw the table at you. So these are the kind of people to watch out for. The other bits of controlling behaviors in relationships. So for instance, you have people who relationships where one person will keep all the cash. So they're in charge of how the money is spent, what the money is spent on, all the major decisions in the family. They take all the decisions. So you begin to wonder, like, right, are we together in this or is it just one person? One of them, they control, okay, who buys the furniture in the house, who spends money on what, they keep everything. So you don't have money, you don't have access to money. So in the event that you actually wanted to do something for yourself, you can't. You have to always go to them to say, okay, can I have $10 to do this, or can I have £10 to do this? That's also a way of control, the fact that you always have to come to them. Remember at the beginning I said, domestic abuse is about control and power over the other person. So if you always have to go to someone to ask for something, then obviously they have control over you. You should have your independent life to have access to money. Even in situations where you have one spouse not working, I see no reason why that person shouldn't have a monthly allowance of money to do what they want to do with the money without having to ask every time. I've seen relationships where people, have to say, oh, can I just have £5, to buy a pizza, or can I just have £5, because I've run out of tissue, like seriously, like you should have your own money. There was this relationship that these people I was talking to, and it was the man's birthday, and he controlled all the money. She had to ask him for money, and he said, well, what's the money for? Now, you want to surprise him, but then you don't have access to money, so she had to say, well, I need money so that I can buy you a gift. Do you see how messed up that sounds, because she has absolutely no access to money, so he now has to decide, oh, well, what do you want to buy? How much is this thing going to cost? So he actually dictates what she's buying. So at the end of the day, it's not really a surprise. It just kills everything. But then they actually lived like that, and it's just like, okay. On so many occasions, she considered leaving, but then how would she, when he had isolated her in a different part of the world? He had no family, no friends, and no access to funds. And sometimes, extreme cases, they actually cut off their communication, so no internet and no mobile phone, so there's no way to actually get out of it. A lot of times, abusive people, one of their methods and tricks is they try to isolate you from your support system. So be it your family, your friends, your workmates, they will isolate you. Some relationships you hear that someone just stopped working, they've lost interest in their career and they don't go to work anymore. That's a way to control them, because now they have no access to the outside world. You have people going to relationships that all of a sudden they have no friends anymore, they don't see their family anymore. This is an extreme one of the ways that people get isolated and placed in an abusive situation. They cut off all ties, all societal ties. Remember that these people that you're being cut off from were there from the day you were born. Literally, your mom, your dad, your sisters, everyone, they were there. Your friends were there. These are people that you built a life with. These are people that you lean on, and they can say, hey, what's going on, and they can punch you right. But now you have no access to those people for no reason, because one person says, no, I don't think you should hang out with them. Who is this person? What right do they have to tell you who you should or shouldn't hang out with? Like, just cut off everybody, live in an island. Come on. Also, you have extreme cases where abusers will attack you with weapons. You have cases, I've talked about that a bit, where they will attack you, they will stop you from eating, sleeping, or getting medical care. I've seen this all the time. And in situations where you have children in relationships, they suffer as well, because if you're not getting medical care, the kids are not getting medical care as well. I've seen kids that have grown up and they were never registered in the dentist and stuff like that. They never went for treatment. If they were sick, they were like self-medicated in the house and all that stuff. These are all extreme cases of abuse, and it emotionally drains and damages the victim of abuse. That at some point when they do make it out of that relationship, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new process, to kind of rewire them, right? Now, this part, some people, I see this post all the time, on social media, and people like to argue about it, but it is what it is. In abusive relationships, yeah, you would have partners force the other person to have sex. So some people will argue that, oh, no, there's no such thing as marital rape and stuff like that. No, relax. People get raped all the time when they're married. They just don't know, And even when they do know, because society has not really come to that stage where they understand that these things are wrong, it's also difficult for a woman to come out and say, my husband raped me, because people are thinking, okay, your husband raped you, how can your husband do that? But it happens all the time in abusive relationships. So breaking news, is actually a law now, and you could get some time for raping your spouse. So don't think that, oh, she's my wife, I can't rape her. No, if you're raping your wife, you're raping your wife. If you're raping your girlfriend, you're raping your girlfriend. The fact that you're in a relationship doesn't mean you can't rape her. So people need to understand. And I'm not going to go into the definition of what rape is. If you need to know what rape is, then go on Google and check it, you understand? If a person has not given you their consent to have sex with them, then you don't have the right to do that. I don't care if you're married or if you're in a relationship. If they say no, no means no. You understand? If you really want to have an intimate relationship with your spouse, then you should walk your way towards it. You understand? You don't... The fact that you are in a relationship with a person doesn't mean you own them spirit, soul, and body, and you can do and abuse them in any way you feel like. It's, for instance, you know, you have money in a bank, for instance. This is just an example. You have money in a bank. It's your money is in the bank. The bank opens at 9 o'clock and it finishes at 5. You're not going to get there at 8 o'clock and kick the door open and say, come on, open that bank, man. I want to get my money out. You're not going to go there. And even when the bank is open at 9 o'clock, you will queue up and wait for your turn. You're not going to go there and start shouting and say, hey, who's going on there? I want my money. Get my money out of the bank. You don't do that. There is a process. Likewise in relationship, right? The fact that he's your husband and she's your wife, you don't have the right to abuse them because you say, well, you know, I own your body, I'm married to you. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. The abusive people could also make you dress in a particular way that you don't want to dress. So a lot of abusers, they have like this, some sick fantasies or fetish. They might make you do things that they're not things that you would do normally. They make you do those things that you know you don't feel comfortable doing these things. But it is abuse, you know. If you don't want to dress in a particular way, if you don't have those kind of fetish and you don't want to do those things and you're being made to do that, then that's abuse. That's not right. Now, if you both want to try stuff and you want to be creative, you know, you want to go crazy like me, yes, that's fine. You understand? But when one party is a bit conservative and the other person is a conversation, you have to come to an agreement of certain things. You don't impose what you want on the person. I'll give you a simple example, for instance, and this is not even about sex. You know, I know this couple, right? So one person likes to eat pasta and the other person doesn't like to eat pasta. Now, because the man doesn't like pasta, from the day they got married, he said, we're not eating pasta anymore in this house. And for 6 years, she never ate pasta. Now, you might think about, oh, it's just pasta. No, it's abuse. Because it's not like she said, all right, fine, you don't like pasta, so because you don't like pasta, I'm not going to eat it anymore. No, that was not the case. That's a negotiation. And that would have been all right. Now, this was a case where someone said, I don't like pasta, so we're not eating it in this house anymore. I don't like sausages, so we're not eating it. The other person wants to eat it, but they don't have a choice. That is abuse. Sometimes, still on the sexual abuse bit, sometimes one party will want to give the other party STDs. Now, I've heard so many cases where one person is quite promiscuous. They got an STD. They don't want to use protection. They don't want to get medication. And they're still insisting that they have sex. Now, what are you trying to do? And they force themselves on the other person. You understand? You know, I mean, you don't care about me, you know, it's not a big deal. They will try to manipulate you into saying, like, no, nothing's gonna happen, you know, it's fine, you know, or they don't even talk about it. They don't say anything about the fact that they've got an STD. And they go ahead and then they have sex with their partners and then they pass it on. Sometimes they even switch it and say, oh, hang on, I got that from you. They never told the truth that they had it in the first place. So all of these things, right, that I'm listing out, if you are experiencing these things in your relationships, yeah, it's not normal. There's nothing normal about it. One of the things and the advantages, or the advantage that an abuser has, is because they isolate their partners, and then people are ashamed to talk about these things. They live in it for so long. If you ever talk about your relationship to your friends, right? If your relationship is normal, people will have, they just carry on the conversation. But when you start talking about your relationship and things that are going on in your relationship, people are like, oh my God. Then you know that your relationship is not normal at all. In fact, the things that you're not proud to talk about it, because, I mean, every human being, right? We got this thing inside us that tells us what's right or wrong. The fact that you feel uncomfortable to talk about certain parts of your relationship, then that is number one indication that that relationship has got some serious issues. You get me? A lot of times, abusive people will insist on not using condoms and no birth controls. So it's like they're on a mission to get you pregnant or get you sick. So they do that because let's say the abuser is the man, right? And he doesn't want to use condoms, or he doesn't want you to use birth control. What is he trying to do? He's trying to get you pregnant. So once you're pregnant, he can control you more. And obviously, statistics show that during pregnancy, abuse increases. So it doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. Imagine a woman being pregnant, with all your emotions and, everything, hormones and everything just all over the place. And that's the time when someone increases the abuse. You get me? So there's a reason why they do these things. Now switch it, because men get abused as well. Now you're dating this woman, if she doesn't want you to use a condom, and she doesn't use birth control, what's she trying to do? She's trying to speed up that relationship. One of the things you have to understand about abusive people is that they move relationships really quickly. So once they spot that person and they feel like this is an easy target, this is the person that I want, this is the person that I can, do this with, this is the person I can successfully control, they will move things very quickly. So she's not going to use birth control. She's not going to want you to use a condom. You understand? And the next thing is, oh, I'm pregnant. And then you being a good guy, you're not going to talk about abortion. You're going to say, let's get married, let's move in together, and then it goes on from there. Oh, you don't love me anymore, you don't have the mother of your child, oh, you don't do this, and then why are you going out to see your friends, why are you going to play football, why are you going to the pub, why are you doing this? You should be with your wife, you should be with your children, you just go out all the time. And then that's how it starts. You get me? So these things here, all of these things are lots of things that you will see in abusive relationships. So if you are going through any of these things, please don't stay alone and don't be quiet about it. Try and talk to someone. You got no one else to talk to them. Talking about domestic abuse and how people can identify what domestic abuse is, and and to tell themselves that, look, hang on, this person is abusive and they're not going to change. A lot of times people think this person is going to change, they'll get better, they'll love me better, but the longer a victim stays in an abusive situation, both men and women, they get worse. It gets worse and it gets traumatizing, and it's a messy situation.